You got in a car accident. What do? It wasn't even your fault. Well, number one, do not drive away. Now, I know this seems kind of obvious, but I see people do this all the time. It's one of those things where they just panic. They don't know what's going on. Maybe they're not sure if they have their insurance card with them or something like that, and they just drive off. They don't think anybody got hurt or anything, so they just think it's not a big deal. That's a huge issue. Number one, the reason why I say that is because if you drive off and you panic and you drive away, there's a very high probability you're going to end up being charged with either a hit and run if someone was injured, or you can end up looking at a failure to stop and a failure to stop at an accident that involved damage. Now, I see this happen all the time. Let's say you drove away and you got lucky and no one caught you, right? You don't immediately get pulled over. Well, here's what to expect. There's cameras all over the place now. So cops, once they find out what's going on, they end up seeing that you have a license plate that ends up being tracked by some type of camera or some witness that's there. They're going to end up giving you a letter, sending a letter to the last known actual registered, whoever the vehicle is registered to. You're going to get a letter in the mail telling you, hey, we understand your license plate was associated with a car accident for which you fled the scene. Please contact the police as soon as possible. I've seen many, many clients receive that letter. First of all, you need to understand, if you get that letter, be very careful, because if you're looking at a hit and run, that's up to 10 years in prison. And even at that failure to stop and at an accident, you could be talking about up to a year in the county jail. So these are two big concerns. You get that letter, do not call the police. I mean, come on, it seems like it should be obvious, but if you call the police, all they're going to do is they're going to immediately know it's you. They're going to start asking you questions, and you're going to put yourself in a tough spot. So if you get the letter, don't call the police. Either ignore the letter or call an attorney, because you'll know if you ignore that letter and they begin to give you a call, get ready. They already know who it is, and they have a pretty good idea that you're likely the one who is driving. Now, the reason why I say that is, remember, you have a Sixth Amendment right to counsel. So that means you can hire an attorney to do the talking for you. I have a lot of clients who have called over to us to assist them in this process, and here's what we do. We call the actual detective who's assigned to the case, and what we end up finding is many times they don't know for sure who was driving. They know someone was driving this vehicle that maybe is registered to you, but they don't know for sure whether it was you or someone else driving it. So now they can't really bring an arrest against someone that they don't know who is driving. Simply because a car was involved doesn't mean they can actually link you to driving the vehicle. So that's why it's really important. Anything your attorney says is hearsay and cannot be used against you. But remember, everything you say can absolutely be used against you. So you always have two rights here. You have a Fifth Amendment right to be quiet. Don't talk to that detective. But then secondly, you always have that Sixth Amendment right to retain an attorney and let him do the talking for you. Because when you do that, you protect yourself. Everything your attorney says is hearsay. All right. Now, if you do choose to do the talking on your own, I want to warn you, the police will be probing you to establish the fact who was behind that wheel. I've seen this happen where they'll say, well, I need to know who was driving the vehicle that day. And the first thing they say is, well, it wasn't me. They're going to say, well, who was? Say, well, I don't know. Well, then where were you that day? Now imagine what they're trying to do. In the process of getting into that conversation, what they're really trying to get you to do is to say things that don't make a whole lot of sense, and now it makes you look guilty. So sometimes it's the thing you say, and sometimes it's the things you don't know what to say that tries to make you look guilty. That can lead to a probable cause warrant for your arrest. All right. Now, so number one, don't drive away. Number two, pull over and make sure you're not injured. Now, I know this seems obvious, but I see a lot of people do this all the time. They end up pulling over. They want to make sure how bad their car is damaged, and they want to know what's happening. You need to make sure you're not seriously hurt. And one of the biggest reasons for this is, number one, your health, but number two, think about the fact if you're going to actually bring a lawsuit in this situation based upon someone else causing damage to you. It's really important that you make a determination of your injuries, because that is critical to your damage amounts if you are going to hire a personal injury attorney to move forward with trying to make sure and get a good settlement value for you. Because here's the thing, the longer in time you put out there between the time of the accident and the time you're seeking medical care, the less reliable that is, and there's a chance that there was an intervening cause that caused that injury for you. So it damages your injury suit. All right, that's number two. Number three, should you talk to the police and the insurance company? Now, this is kind of a big one. So first of all, we're going to look at this from a civil perspective. I'm going to look at both the criminal perspective and the civil perspective, how this works out. Let's talk talk about the personal injury lawsuit as it first comes up. You didn't do anything wrong. Someone else did something to you. Should you be talking to the police? Well, first of all, if you know the other party was wrong and you know the police aren't really giving you a hard time about much of anything, you should demand a police report be written and that an accident investigation be performed, because you might know that you didn't do anything wrong, but you need to have a police report establishing the fact the other party was at fault. This is really important. You have to establish fault in an injury lawsuit, and one of the best ways to do that is to make sure the police write up a report to establish the fact the other driver was the one who was actually at fault. So demand a thorough investigation. Sometimes these police officers get real lazy. They don't want to mess with these type of incidents, and you can end up sitting there with a very sloppy police report that can hurt your personal injury lawsuit, all right? Also, if it's more than a minor accident, and I've said this already, but if it's more than a minor accident and you think you're injured, seek medical attention right there at the scene. Ask for 911 to come. Make sure the police it's not just the police showing up. You want to have an ambulance show up, take you to the hospital, and take care of it. And don't worry about the immediate cost of that. That's going to be built into the insurance company taking care of that and or part of your injury settlement, because there's usually a multiplier effect on the amount of damages that you can receive. You can receive a settlement. So it's usually 2-3x your medical care that you can end up receiving in terms of a settlement value on the case. So now the insurance company. Real important that you call your insurance company and let them know what happened. You don't want to neglect the fact that they need to be aware of what took place, particularly if you know the police are siding with you and you didn't do anything wrong. If it was more than a minor injury, like I said before, never leave the scene. Make sure you get attention right then. Have the EMTs take a look at you. You want to make sure that you obtain a report number from the police. Don't leave there. Some family member or yourself needs to obtain a police report from the police to make sure that something was done. And of course, if it's more of a minor type of an injury, you can exchange driver's insurance information. Do not let that other driver drive away without exchanging information, because if they do, that could end up being a crime. That's failure to stop at an accident, and they could end up being charged. Now, let's talk about for a few minutes about criminal concerns, though. What if it's the other side? What if you see the police showing up and they start questioning you, or maybe there was a car accident and maybe you'd been out with your buddies, maybe you'd had something to drink, maybe you had been at a cocktail party or something like that. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I'm concerned. Might have a little alcohol in my breath. How are the police going to interpret the way I see that, or the way I look in this situation? Very different. Maybe there was racing involved, reckless driving. Maybe you were speeding. I can tell you the police are going to turn it on you real quick. They're going to begin to ask you types of questions and treating you like you did something wrong. And if that is the case, please understand, if the police are interrogating you or treating you like you did something wrong in some type of criminal investigation, you need to recognize that everything you say will be used against you. The officer will likely twist anything that you say. And in fact, if they're already starting to treat you like you might have done something wrong, they're probably already writing things down. They're taking notes. They're already probably planning what their report's going to say, like moderate or strong odor of an alcoholic beverage. The individual is being evasive and not answering my questions. Or maybe if they ask you to step out and they start asking you questions like, hey, sir, were you speeding? What were you paying attention to whenever you ran into this individual over here? Or you know what? I think I smell alcohol in your breath. Why don't you get over here? I'm gonna have you do a few field sobriety tests. Can I tell you right now, if you start getting those questions, the police are not on your side. They're planning to do an investigation that will more than likely end up with a possible arrest. So you need to be aware of the fact that the things that you say at this point will not likely help you. If anything, they will hurt you. Exercise your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Tell that officer right away, officer, listen, I don't feel comfortable with this. At this point, I'm going to exercise my Fifth Amendment right. I'm not going to speak anymore. Okay. And what if he gives you a hard time? So what? You can tell the cop, say, hey, I don't know my rights. All I know is I'm going to exercise my Fifth Amendment right. And by the way, I'm going to seek an attorney right now. I'm going to wait and talk to an attorney. Well, you don't have a right to an attorney at this time. With all due respect, I would like to speak to an attorney. All you have to do is exercise those rights. You don't have to say anything else. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. You start talking about the insurance company discussion. In this situation, insurance companies will always want you to give some type of recorded statement about what took place. Now, it gets a little touchy if you're talking about an insurance investigation where they're wanting you to give a recorded statement, but you're being investigated, you've been arrested for some type of crime. I represented a guy who was arrested for reckless driving. It was actually racing. And some other guy was racing with him, and it caused an injury. It was racing that led to serious bodily injury of someone else who got in the accident. And so, of course, there was damage to the vehicles, and the insurance company wanted him to give a statement. But if he gave a statement, that entire thing was going to be recorded. We don't know how it was going to turn out, particularly if it was more of not just a recorded statement, but more of a deposition. You understand, civil statements for civil lawsuits can absolutely be used against you in criminal court. So you have to be very careful. Beware that detective, savvy detectives, will be looking for any recorded statements or any depositions that take place in a civil case so that they can immediately use them against you in a criminal case. Okay. So it is critical to hire a criminal attorney to act as a buffer, a bit of a firewall between you and that civil case and the criminal side of things as they're doing the investigation. Finally, number 4, gather all the favorable evidence that you can at the scene. Because once you get out of there, they tend to clean everything up. And it's really important here. It's critical for both civil and criminal concerns when you're looking at a car accident here. Was someone with you at the time? If there was another passenger with you, or maybe you were a passenger in the car. Maybe there was somebody who came to the door and said, hey, are you okay? If there was a witness to what took place here, particularly if you know you didn't do anything wrong, or you know you weren't intoxicated and now they're trying to claim that you were, it's important to gather as much evidence as you can. If there was a witness there, obtain a witness statement. Get their name, get their phone number. Make sure you jot all that down so that you can get back in touch with them. I mean, I've seen so many times where the police don't ever even look into that. They don't take the names of any witnesses who were there. They do a sloppy investigation. And unless you do your part, you'll miss out on opportunity to be able to work with someone to get the truth out for you so that you can help make sure and either exonerate yourself or get yourself that settlement that you deserve. Now, for example, we had a client that was charged also with reckless driving, and he was smart enough to ask when he was there, he was smart enough to ask for the name and phone number and address of the person who was a witness to all that this happened. And after we contacted them and collected a sworn statement from them, we were able to establish he wasn't the one that was driving recklessly. It was the other guy who ran into him. He was driving, speeding like crazy, cutting across lanes, ran into our guy, shoved him into the side wall there on the bridge. And so as a result of that, we were able to clear our client's name. His charges were dismissed because we had a third-party witness who was able to establish what actually happened at the scene. So this is a great example of how gathering information can make a huge difference on both a criminal and a civil case. So hey, listen, why does it matter? Look, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I have a law firm, the Hampton Law Firm. We also do some personal injury work. If you or a loved one need some assistance with this stuff, I bring it up because I just want you to understand, look, these are your rights. These are the things you need to do. And this is the stuff that lawyers many times will not tell you. You can have a criminal and a civil consequence for a car accident, depending on how the cops are treating you. All right, listen, I hope this helped you. I'll see you next time. I appreciate it.